Hello, comrades. This is Find the Alien. It's a YouTube game, and it's a weird YouTube game. You have just two tools available to you. You can't really move. One is the scanner that lets you detect aliens. The other is this ray gun that lets you shoot them. You cannot control where you move. You just look around, find the aliens, and shoot. Occasionally, you talk to this man. I guess he's not really a man. He's an alien. This alien, the king of aliens, in fact, and he says various variations on basically, you are no match for the aliens, or how did you manage to foil our plans? The game never really changes. Every now and again, you get to one of these levels where aliens run at you and you click on them to shoot them with your ray gun. At the end, it lets you know how many citizens you rescued. This was the first thing that stood out to me. It lets you know how many citizens are left. The game lets you know from the very beginning that there is a clear end, which in my experience is a little unusual with YouTube games. But it doesn't feel like there's any real progress within the game outside of this one number. And you see the number go up. It's just the game doesn't change. Every few levels, your gun upgrades, but it's just an aesthetic change. You reach the end, it's just like all the parts before. There's no real progression in difficulty, despite basically having no difficulty to begin with, and there's no plot to speak of. We do not know who the main character is, we do not know who the people being rescued are. They never talk or do anything but run away. And we don't really even know anything about the aliens themselves. It's hard to think of anything else besides the 1988 classic film They Live while playing this game, at least for me. They Live is also about a man who discovers a way to see that people are aliens, so at least some people are aliens disguised as people, specifically with these glasses.
What's your problem?
But in They Live, he also sees the propaganda messages all around him that are subliminally telling humanity how to act. And there's a clear pattern of who is and is not an alien, and which humans side with the aliens. They Live has a rather heavy-handed political commentary criticizing the rightward shift in American politics during the Reagan administration. Find the Alien, however, is just kinda empty, like someone watched They Live with only the most surface-level reading and made it into the simplest possible game. Movies like They Live use aliens to criticize neoconservatism, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers uses them to criticize communism.
So that's how it began. Out of the sky.
Your new bodies are growing in there. They're taking you over, cell for cell, atom for atom. Suddenly, while you're asleep, they'll absorb your minds, your memories, and you're reborn into an untroubled world.
Where everyone's the same.
Exactly.
What a world.
But there is no ideology in Find the Alien. So the question I am left with is, why aliens? The only possible thematic or ideological explanation I could think of that would really kind of mean anything was that the entire game was an extended metaphor about illegal immigration. Alien, of course, does not just mean extraterrestrial, but it can also be foreign more broadly. And those who are in the US illegally can be called illegal aliens. But the only shred of evidence I could find for this is that when you rescue people, they are referred to as citizens, which felt like a weird choice of words. I think it could have been Earthling, but perhaps Earthling sounds more like what aliens call us, and not what we call ourselves. It could have also been humans, but not all the Earthlings you rescue are humans. So why aliens? It seems like the answer is just that you do not have to justify why aliens are evil. If it were a secret group of human beings you had to hunt for, you would have to explain that they were evil, and why, and you'd probably have to go out of your way to make some kind of explanation of how they became evil or in what way being evil was attractive to them. However, the audience is already primed to accept that aliens are evil. If this game were about fairies pretending to be humans, you would probably have some problem, because fairies are mostly depicted, in American media at least, as good, or at least morally neutral. If there were fairies, you would have to make them evil fairies and explain why. But the aliens, you don't even have to make them evil aliens. You can just make them aliens and the audience will do all of the heavy lifting. So why is it worth talking about a simple game using simple common cultural frames of reference? I think it's worth thinking about because it reflects a broader trend in media that I believe negatively affects our ability to seriously understand history and our place within it. Find the Alien is not the first piece of media that seeks to use shorthand to get the audience to believe that the bad guys are exceptionally evil without explanation. It's common with aliens, zombies, vampires, robots, stormtroopers, and even certain historical movements. If we look back in the 20th century and look at who created the greatest atrocities, and we always show them as unshakably evil, it turns them into cartoons. No more real than the aliens in this game. This makes it almost unthinkable that anyone in the real world might actually hold these beliefs. So when someone calls certain modern ideologies fascism, people respond by saying that it's almost by definition an argument that can't be made in good faith. No rational person would ever be a fascist. And if you think that someone else is a fascist, then you can't understand what they actually believe. You can't accept them as a rational person. And basically you're turning them into a cartoon villain in their mind. But millions of people were actual, literal fascists. We must ask ourselves, were the people of Italy, Germany, Spain, and Portugal in the early 20th century made more purely evil than anyone today? Were they born with evil in their hearts? If they were indeed a more pure evil, if there was something fundamentally broken about them as a people, I think we need to ask ourselves, why? But if the German of the 1930s was not a person born evil, but was rather a normal person living in circumstances that led to normal people becoming and doing some of the most evil things in history, we must ask ourselves why. And we must ask ourselves if we are free from those conditions. If normal people can be evil, if they can become evil, if they can do evil things, how can we be so sure that our nation now is too far away from evil? When someone calls out a modern ideology as being like an evil ideology of the past, we can't simply dismiss it out of hand. But we must actually engage with it and study the past to understand what led to such horrible things and what we have done, if anything, to ensure that it will not happen again. And the next time you are playing a game or watching a movie where the bad guy is pure evil for reasons that only need a surface level indication to accept, take a second and remind yourself that the most evil acts of history relied on people who were born completely normal to commit. Hey! Thanks for watching the video. I make videos of books, language, and a few things I just want to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, then click over here to see my video about my problems with YouTube games more broadly. But don't forget to drop me a like before you go. And remember, good night, good day, good potato.